Hi sophomores, so this video is for my first and second period English 10 classes. We were working on an essay before the break. We're not going to continue on with that particular essay. I'd like you guys to finish the work that's on the website for last week and this week, as well as it's the same work that I sent home in the manila folders too, so you have those to work on and complete. But for the next few weeks, we are going to be reading a couple of short stories. The first short story is by an author named Jack London. It's called To Build a Fire, and it's a very good short story. I'm actually going to do a biography of Jack London tomorrow, so that you have a little bit of background about him before you start reading this short story next week. It will be uploaded on Friday. You will have it on the website. You could even just Google To Build a Fire, free PDF, and there's a few Google websites that have a free copy of the story. It's only about 18 pages or so, so it's not too long to read. There will be comprehension questions that will go along with the short story after it is done. As you're looking at the screen here, you see the word naturalism up here. The story To Build a Fire is bathed in naturalism, and so I wanted to give you a little background on the theme of naturalism. Now, I want you to know that this particular PowerPoint, there will be questions that you're going to have to answer later on based on this particular slideshow. So make sure that you take notes if you want to. I'll give you guys about a minute right now. If you want to go and get paper and pencil, grab your notebook. If you don't have a notebook, guys, I do recommend going out and get one. If you go to the school, knock on the door, someone will answer, and they can go and grab a notebook out of my classroom for you if you need to have one at home to take notes, because there will be a lot of material. Just like in class, I want to make sure that you are aware of what is happening. So I'll give you just a minute to go and do that. Remember, this is only for first and second period. I have other YouTube videos on the YouTube site for the other periods of the day, so make sure you check those out. They're on the southwestleadership.com webpage. On the front page, it will say click here to see assignments and download work, and all of your teachers' work is right there for you. Okay, so let's begin here. While many modern works, modern stories contain elements that are based in naturalism, naturalism specifically refers to a type of literary movement that took place in America, England, and France during the late 1800s and early 1900s, which produced a unique type of realistic fiction. In order to understand naturalism, we must first examine realism to see the opposite. So realism, guys, portrays life realistically without sugarcoating. I would write in your notes, realism portrays life realistically. There's a little hint. Realists, or people who wrote realism, tried to write reality. They record the small details of things that happen in people's everyday lives to show the exact reality of what was happening to people, how they lived, how they worked, the struggles that they went through. It portrays the local color, meaning they tried to portray the customs and the language and the way that people dressed at the time period, and also the living conditions wherever they lived. These type of stories reject the supernatural and romanticism and imaginative settings. Naturalism is essentially realism. But there is an additional facet or fact that makes it naturalism, and that is determinism. Determinism says that characters do not have free will to do what they want, to live how they want. And determinism, external, meaning something outside of them, their society they live in, the job that they work at, or nature controls their behavior. But also internal forces, conflicts inside themselves, right? A person wants to be free, but they have the conflict of knowing that they need to be successful so that they can take care of their parents when they get older. And this is what determinism is. They believe in the existence of the free will, but the will of an individual is enslaved due to a multitude of reasons. Characters are attempting to exercise free will or hamstrung or are problemized by forces beyond their control. So for this page, guys, I would put in determinism, characters do not have free will. So please write that down if you have your notebook. In determinism, characters do not have free will. Okay. Naturalists, or people who believe in naturalism, view individuals as being at the mercy of biological and socio-economic forces, right? Society, the economy, how much money we have. Whereas realists hold that humans have some degree of free will that they can exercise to affect their situations. Things happen to people as if they were marionettes whose movements are entirely determined by forces beyond their control. And if you don't know, marionettes are essentially puppets that have strings, and there is someone that is controlling the strings. And that is what naturalism would be, is that forces outside of the person is controlling them. Next, in naturalism, forces are beyond the character's control. There can be environmental issues that happen, such as a storm or a character lost at sea. Think the movie Perfect Storm, the movie Twister. Also social conditions, right? A character born into poverty has to deal with their situations that they are in. Think Color Purple. Chance or fate. A character's child is suddenly stricken with typhoid fever, right? Something terrible happens to an individual and affects their life without their own will to change it. Also, internal passions, right? A person's lust, greed, or their desire for dominance or pleasure can overcome their natural rational behavior. Survival of the fittest, right? People are heavily influenced by emergent scientific theories of the time. During the time period when naturalism first arrived on the literary scene, there was a huge theory, Darwin's theory of evolution. Really, that word should say adaptation. He rarely used the word evolution. Anyway, survival of the fittest, the strongest survive. Those who can do and those who don't are manipulated and controlled by outside forces. Conflict is often man against nature or man against himself. A lot of survival stories are in naturalism. And, to build a fire, in some sense, is a survival story. The indifferent and omnipotent, right, the godly, the all-controlling power of nature. So in this instance, nature or fate is an indifferent force acting upon the lives of human beings. The Grapes of Wrath, right, was written about the 1930s, the Great Depression, and the Dust Bowl, and how all of these people in the Midwest were affected and how the crops wouldn't grow, they ran out of food, people were starving, and they had to find a way to live. But nature didn't care or interact with any mercy. It just was. And people had to try and survive. And that's why it says that works often describe futile attempts of human beings to exercise their free will in a universe that ironically reveals that free will is an illusion. So, I would like you to write, nature of fate is an indifferent force acting upon the lives of human beings. So this could show up on a little quiz or test or assignment that you'll have to do. So I would write that down. The bullet point in blue. All right, let's roll on here. So, next, subject matter. Naturalism generally deals with raw and unpleasant experiences which reduce characters to degrading behavior as they struggle to survive. Characters are mostly from the lower middle or lower classes in naturalism. They're generally poor, uneducated, and unsophisticated. The drama of the people working itself out in blood and filth. That's really good. Not sure who Norris is. Only Norris I know is Chuck. That was supposed to be a joke. Alright, the characters in naturalism are generally commonplace and the unheroic. Just regular people living regular lives and their dull struggle of daily existence. So I'm going to give you guys a minute. I want you to write that first bullet point. The characters are generally commonplace and the unheroic. Okay. Also, the naturalist reveals qualities in their characters that are usually associated with the heroic or adventurous. So what that means is even though this person or people have these sort of uninteresting qualities or poor, have a dull struggle, they typically have something heroic inside of them. Often acts of violence and passion lead to desperate moments and violent death. Think to build a fire. Life at its lowest levels is not as simple as it seems to be. It's usually a slice of life drama that zooms in on one moment in time to show the chronicle of despair or the sorrow and sadness and the heavy, painful lives that these people are going through. Okay, so attempts to apply the scientific principles of objectivity and detachment to its study of human beings. So, in naturalism, characters are but higher order animals, fully subject to the forces of heredity. Meaning, I know this is a little complex, meaning that we are all subject to the forces of our families, of where we came from, or of our socioeconomic backgrounds, right? And the environment that we live in, right? Do we live in a harsh desert or during the Dust Bowl in the 30s, right, where food could not grow and there was a layer of 2 feet of dust on the ground? So most times, naturalism, the story is told in third person. The narrator is just telling the story. They're detached, objective, and unsympathetic. They don't necessarily care for the characters. They're just showing. The narrator doesn't comment on the morality or the fairness of the situations, but that's something that the reader would empathize with as they read the particular story. Sometimes in naturalism, this isn't always true, the characters can maintain dignity, their sense of inner self, and confidence, even though there's adversity. Sometimes the characters are crippled and die violent deaths. Sometimes they're able to make it through. It says here that they are conditioned and controlled by environment, social conditions, heredity, chance, or instinct. But The characters typically have humanistic or human values which affirm that their individuality in their life and gives purpose to it. Their struggle for life becomes heroic, and that's what makes us typically connect to the protagonist or the main character in these stories, and they're able to maintain their human dignity despite negative things happening to them. Many times these people are faced with overwhelming and oppressive material forces that control their lives, but they maintain their self-worth, their self-value anyway. Think Color Purple, if you've ever read it or watched the movie. Here's some examples. The experimental novel written by Emile Zola. Stephen Crane, The Open Boat. We may actually read that one too. It's very good. But we definitely are doing Jack London, To Build a Fire. There's also Edith Wharton's The House of Mirth. John Steinbeck of Mice and Men. I know many of you have already read that particular play or watched the movie. And here's a few other examples of naturalism stories and plays and novels. So we're going to be doing To Build a Fire first, and then I have a few ideas for some fun one, another fun one that I thought, it's not on this list, but it could be something that we would watch or could read later. Oh, here's an example from the story The Open Boat. When it occurs to a man that nature does not regard him as important, and that she feels she would not maim the universe by disposing of him, he at first wishes to throw bricks at the temple, and he hates deeply the fact that there are no bricks and no temples. Wow, pretty powerful. Okay, so this particular video was for my sophomores. I would like you guys to make sure that you are completing all your assignments and have them done by Friday, because I will have the story uploaded on Monday to the website, the school website, for you to be able to read, or you can just Google it yourself, To Build a Fire by Jack London. I will have chapter questions for you to complete and do, so please make sure that you are completing all of these assignments. So have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow with another video.